Welcome to Leadership and Loyalty Tips for Executives. My name is Dov Barron. I'm your host, and I'm here with my special guest, David Long. Yes, this is the man who has just come out with a new book called Built to Lead. You probably can see that. There it is, Built to Lead. This is the galley copy. He has the hard copy in his hand. This is a great book. I want to tell you a little bit about David. He has a very successful company. I want to have him on for a couple of reasons. You know, the show is obviously leadership and loyalty. I want to talk about what he talks about in leadership is a little different than what most people talk about, because he's dealing with a lot with managers and understanding, you know, there's always been this distinction. What is a manager, what is a leader? And what I really loved about the book, David, is that you brought those two things together, for me at least. You brought those two things together, and I want to get into that. I want people to understand that. And you've done your whole business is built on how to generate loyalty. So it's a really great tie-in. And I think that one of the reasons that people will really enjoy this particular podcast is because how you and I were introduced was through a friend of ours, mutual friend of ours, Larry Bonet, a good man. And many of my viewers, listeners know of Larry. He's been on our show. We've interviewed him. He's just a terrific guy. And one of the first things that Larry said to me, "You've got to meet this guy." And I said, "Why?" Because he knows I work like a lunatic. And I said, "Okay, yeah, I do. I work like a lunatic. That's true. Why do I have to meet him?" He goes, "Because he takes 24 weeks a year holiday?"
22 usually average.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Only 22. You must be exhausted.
Not too much.
So this guy takes a lot of time off. You got to talk to him because he really understands how to work on your business rather than in your business. So I really want to get into that. So let me welcome you. Thank you, David, for joining us. I really appreciate you joining us today.
Thank you, Dov. I appreciate the opportunity.
It's great. Now, I know that you've been doing back-to-back interviews, 2 and 3 a day with your new book that's come out. You've hit the top of the bestseller list on multiple categories on Amazon. The book is already doing well. I know you've got piles of fantastic endorsements. And by now, I'm guessing you're probably pretty sick of answering questions, particularly seeing as most of them are probably the same questions.
Sometimes, yeah, that's right.
Like, oh yeah, let me just pull out that answer.
Just hold it to the screen.
Exactly. I'm tired. Could you just read this?
Here, just read it. That's right.
Exactly. So I will do my best to. I'm going to probably ask you some of the same ones, but I'm going to do my best to also ask you some deeper questions. First of all, the book, as I said, is called Built to Lead. Tell us what you mean by built to lead, because there's this, of course, the debate. Are leaders born or are they made? And the title of your book, of course, suggests that they're made.
Yes. Of course, there are some people that are natural leaders. Obviously, that's, people are drawn to them anyway. Mm-hmm. But there are so many people that are managers that don't get it, that they can do something to help them become a better leader by acting on their own, by reading, by listening to DVDs, podcasts like yours, various things like that to help them hone their skills, which a lot of people are just lazy. They won't do it. But you can do it. My whole mantra, if you will, of the book is build yourself, which you read constantly. I read 3 to 4 hours a day. I know you read a lot too as well, Doc. Yeah. And then you build your team, and I'll get into that later about what I do with my book clubs and everything. That's how we build a team. That's one of our strongest things. And then the end of it is build yourself, build a team, and together you'll be built to lead. And that's where I came up with the title for the book.
I see. So, one of the things that I've said for years, and it's probably said it 1,000 times on these podcasts, is, for me, the basis of every great leader is self-knowledge. The willingness to know yourself and to grow yourself. And I know that that's central to your philosophy, right?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely it is.
And so when somebody comes to work for you, because one of the things I talk a lot about is corporate culture. And I know you're very big on that. Yeah. And I find that I've written a lot about this in my new book too, is that when somebody comes in, they get handed the package, here's the package, this is our corporate culture. It's like, that's terrible, because I'm probably never going to read it. And if I do, it's probably going to end up on a shelf somewhere. Yeah. And you're very much about active corporate culture. Tell us a little bit about how you do it in your own company, because you've got a very successful company.
Thank you. I actually, you mentioned when they come in the door, you hand them this package. Actually, the very first thing on our employee handbook is a paragraph that I wrote. And it said, we here at My Employees, our company name, obviously, is we have a culture of getting better tomorrow than we were today. If you're the type of individual that will not be someone that wants to read and to learn and to grow and to be better tomorrow than you were today, you will not fit in here. And that is exactly, like I said, very first paragraph.
Beautiful.
They don't have to read anything else. They know what we think.
Yeah, I mean, and I like that because to me that's like Tony Hsieh.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Tony
Zappos.
With Zappos. You start there and they offer you $2,000 to leave.
That's right. Absolutely.
I love that because it's like, this is who we are. You don't fit, it's okay. We don't hate you.
Absolutely.
We just don't want to waste your energy or our energy. Bugger off.
After I read that, I'm glad you brought that up. After I read that, I said that to my employees, and we have our book club, once a week, but we split up half the company on Wednesday morning at 10, the other half at Thursday morning at 10. And I told all my guys, I said, I read this, in his happiness book and everything. Yeah. And I told him, I said, here's the deal. I said, right now, I am definitely willing to offer you the same thing. And I said, but here's the deal. Understand this. What we have here doesn't exist in most companies. Mm-hmm. And, I've had some of my older employees who worked a lot of jobs, and they're like amening back in the back. Sure. It doesn't exist. They never worked in it. That's right. I see that hand, right? But it is. It's something that you have culture. I know you're huge on that too, Doc. Absolutely. It is something you have to work on. Do not assume your culture is going to remain strong if you do not babysit it and make sure it is so. And that's something you have to work on every day.
So that's a good point because, again, we're talking about loyalty here.
Yeah.
How does that tie into loyalty? I mean, you've got people that have stayed with you for a long time. You and I both know that millennials, particularly millennials, are moving fast. The retention rate is, they're flying out of the door. As you say in your own book, and it's actually in my book too, 42% of the people who work for you, particularly if they're your top people, are already thinking about leaving. They're already got one foot outside the door.
Yeah.
How do you keep them loyal? How do you make sure that they stay with you? Because money's not enough anymore. It's important.
No, it's not. I agree wholeheartedly. They know, first of all, Dov, that I'm loyal to them. You wouldn't say to the fireplace, give me heat and then I'll give you some wood, would you?
Probably not. Not if I'm wearing my brain that day.
That's right. You wouldn't go to the field and say, give me crops, then I'll give you some seeds.
Right.
Well, it's the same deal with us. They have to see loyalty from us to them first.
Yeah.
And if we exhibit that, they know this guy actually cares about me. And that's rare. Right. So they're more apt to stay with you. And I will say that in the industry that I am in the awards, I should say the employee engagement and recognition business, and we have roughly 12,000 clients in the U.S. and Canada, and did 8.3 million last year, projecting about 9, 8, or 10 this year. We take care of our people. Now, we believe, like I said, we talk about our company culture, where everybody has the mindset of getting better. So the loyalty, by them knowing that you invest in them, and Gallup organization said this, people to be happy at work, and this is in my book, if you're to be happy at work, there are key things that have to happen. First of all, you have to have a friend at work. You have to have somebody you look forward to see. You also have to have someone there who believes in helping you, who you feel has your best interest at heart in progressing your career. And a lot of places don't have that, Dob.
No. So how do you set that up? How do you set that up that I come in as a new employee to the company, maybe as a manager, maybe at the floor, whatever it is, so that I've got that. So I've got that person who has my best interest, and I know it.
Yeah, absolutely. What we do, first of all, and of course, I'll go into more detail right now about my book clubs. Yeah. And this was something I started about a decade ago. I read a book by Dr. Tony Zeiss, who has now become a good friend of mine and a mentor. He is the president of Central Piedmont Community College in Charlotte, North Carolina. Now, that might not sound like a big deal, but it's the largest community college network in the country. Wow. Of the United States. So it is a big deal.
Sure.
And he's got a phenomenal outfit up there. His operation is just incredible. Well, I read a book by him called The 12 Essential Laws for Becoming Indispensable. I read that book, Dov, and I said, wow, I need to share this with my employees. So I bought another 11 copies at the time we had 12 employees. So I called a meeting and I said, all right, guys, I said, here, I want to give you this book. next Monday or Tuesday or whatever day it was, I don't remember now. We're going to meet back here. I'm going to buy pizza. We're all going to sit around and eat our pizza, and we're going to talk about chapter 1. And I want you to take this book and these highlighters and these notebooks, and I want you to write a chapter summary on the first one, which is on attitude. And everybody looked at me like I had deer in the headlights look.
Sure.
I mean, it was, what are you talking about? We don't do book club since I was in 3rd grade, that kind of thing. so let's just say they weren't enthusiastic about it. I mean, just literally. And I even had 2 of my salespeople come to me privately after that meeting and say, Dave, we're uncomfortable doing this. Now, these are telephone salespeople. So, you and I could go out and talk to people all day long. But these people, they're more comfortable on the phone than they are face-to-face.
Right.
So they weren't comfortable with talking in front of people. So I said, no, we're all going to grow as a team. It's mandatory you do it. And then it wasn't 2 or 3 weeks after that, they both came back and told me, wow, I'm really glad. I envisioned something totally different than this. So they really got a lot out of it. So really, when we went through that first book, after the first week or so, when we talked about attitude, nobody spoke up. When I said, tell me about when you had a tough time in your life where attitude affected you at work or in your marriage or that kind of thing. So nobody was speaking. So I went first.
Right.
So I was telling them a couple of times in my life where my attitude was not good.
Mm-hmm.
So then one by one, they just started to share. And then by the 3rd week or so, it was on, baby. I mean, it was just there. Nobody hesitated. We laughed. Right. Literally, we've had people... I've even teared up before talking about my father who had, passed away last year, during these book clubs. I mean, these people know me. They know my heart. I know theirs as well. And that bonds us together. Now, you're going to have some management leaders out there, I should say, trainers, that'll say, well, you don't want to get too personal with your people. Sorry, but I disagree with that. And I got the evidence to prove it. I do not work in my company at all anymore. I have highly competent people in every department and every management position. I do not answer the phone anymore. Mm-hmm. I do not talk to anybody other than my own people, right. Unless somebody wants to talk to me, which is very rare. We could probably go a year or 2 not have any complaints. We're very on top of it. Right. We make sure we take very good care of our clients. It's not an issue. But I would say that because we have that attitude and because like I said, don't work in my company, I only work on it. I tell people today, Dov, that I am coach, mentor, and cheerleader without the skirt.
Well, I'm actually looking forward to the photographs with the skirt. That's just me, call me weird.
Thanks for sharing, Dom.
With the beard and everything, I'm thinking, that could be an interesting photograph. I think it should be the back cover of the advanced edition.
That's right. Well, Sam Walton, when I forgot what it was, but when Walmart hit like $1 billion in sales or something, he had an agreement with his employees that he would go to Wall Street and dance in a grass skirt, and he did it.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Well, you know that Branson had a bet with a very good friend of his who ran an Oriental airline, and his bet was that he would fly the was it London to New York or London to Hong Kong flight as a stewardess, and he did it in drag.
Flight attendant, yeah.
And it's but this is one of the things because it ties into what you're just saying. I mean, you said I had the evidence in my hand. You do, because my book's in your hand too, and in my book we talk about the importance of vulnerability in building a bond. And you're talking about sharing those things, but part of that vulnerability, people think vulnerability is crying and blowing snot bubbles. That is part of it, but it's not just it. It's also the willingness. It's the willingness to play. And when Sam Walton goes out and dances in a grass skirt, and when Branson goes out and dresses in drag, these guys are saying, "Look, I'm not different than you. We're all on the same team." And that vulnerability creates the bond. But you and I are old enough that we grew up with this mentality that I'm the boss and you're at arm's length and I got to keep it that way. And that just doesn't work anymore. And it's so cool for me, anyway, that you are a great example of that not being the case. Like, we can't do that. It's not working. And your company is growing. It's not just surviving. It's thriving.
Yeah. Yeah, we've been growing by 20% a year for about the last 15.
That's awesome.
And that's average. We have some more than we have some less, but we try that 20%, which is the problem, Dov. The bigger you get, the harder it is to get that 20%.
Yeah, that's it. It's a bigger chunk now.
That's a challenge, buddy, I'll tell you.
We've grown 20% in the last year. That's fantastic. What did you make last year? $5,000. Kind of hard when you go, what do you make this year? $10 million. Oh, shit. That's a lot of numbers.
That's a lot more impressive.
Exactly.
That's right.
You know, one of the things in the cultural thing, and one of the things I loved in your book, because I've talked a lot about what's called the resonance of five. And in the old language, it was you become the average of the five people you spend your time with. And
That's right.
I explained the quantum physics of how that actually works. But you said it in a way that I really liked because it was so simple. And that is fellowship of the miserable.
Yeah.
Right? The misery loves company. The fellowship of the
Yeah.
miserable. And you can't afford those. Tell us a little bit about dealing with fellowship of the miserable.
Right, absolutely. Once again, it goes back to that attitude situation. It's as foundational as that. But we have, and Gallup organizations, they really broke it down really well. And if you go to my website for my book, it's called top10manager.com, and go to resources, you'll see this poster I'm talking about.
Right.
Actually, there's a picture of it in my book as well. But
Yeah.
it's what they did is I had my graphics guy who created the poster, and it is 10 Clydesdales pulling a jackass, sitting down.
I've seen that. I have seen that.
Now that represents, Dob, the average world-class company.
Yep.
All right. Now the average U.S. company has 2 of those Clydesdales pulling that jackass.
Right.
Sit down. Now that represents company culture, of course, which is huge.
Yep.
But when you have people in a world-class company, when you have 10 people for every loser that you've got on staff, it's easier for them to drag that one along. But when you get to the average U.S. company and only 2 of those Clydesdales are pulling that donkey or jackass sitting down, it becomes tiring.
Yeah.
And they get frustrated. And you mentioned it earlier, the statistic is 47% of employees, your best employees, Dob, are looking to leave your company now because you tolerate those losers.
And that's the point, right? It's that tolerance piece.
exactly.
And I think that I'm all about, I don't believe in open door. I believe in, because that's nonsense. I believe in open heart. Like really be real, be vulnerable, but at the same time you have to be a leader. So yes, I'm here. You can talk to me, and I will share anything with you. I will say to my people, you have a question for me. It doesn't matter if you think it's too personal. Ask me, because I don't want to have barriers with you.
Absolutely.
But don't forget that this is my organization. It's my culture, and I will fight for it, and I will fight. I will even fight you. Because I'm not, and I always say, I'm not fighting you, I'm fighting the limitations of your mind.
That's right, absolutely.
And that's the piece. So when your salesman came forward and said, oh, I'm not really comfortable with this, you went from being the friendly boss to, it's mandatory.
That's right.
And I think that's what people don't understand is that balance. You've got to have that. You've got to know where the line is for boundaries around this is the culture, this is the company, this is what we do, this is what we stand for. And at the same time, no, I'm not on a throne. No, I'm not distant from you. I will share with you my pain and my suffering and my laughs. And I think that, to me, I just thought when I was reading through your stuff and in our previous conversation, I thought, this is a really great example that you've got it. You understand that piece. Beautifully done.
Thank you. Actually, I use the example. And of course, I will say that this individual has really come around now, and she's doing some stuff for us. But in the book, I talked about having to let my top salesperson go. And this was about 5 years ago.
Right.
And she was making about $150,000 a year with us, which is pretty exceptional.
Decent. Yeah.
And it's very good income for the United States for sure. It's about 3 times bigger than the average.
Right.
And she was really doing well. But the problem is she was making more money than she ever made before, and she just got to the place where she was having some personal problems in her life, and she let that affect her at work. And she started biting people's heads off, Dob. So I had my managers, pull her aside and talk with her. I was in California on vacation. Go figure, right?
I'm surprised. It's unlike you.
So anyway, they called me up and they said, we got a bit of a problem. I'm going, what's the deal? So they told me, and I said, all right, pull her aside and talk to her. And man, when they, one of them did, and she freaked out and went down, and she basically pinned my COO his ears back. Wow. And they called me and let me know. And I said, all right, let her go. And I remember my COO, Adam Tart, has been with me 17 years, my right arm, if you will. Been with me that long. He obviously, it's pretty important to me. So he called me and he said, Dave, and I said, let him go. And he said, Dave, she's our top salesperson. And I said, I have told all of our employees, I do not care how much money you make for me and for the company and for each other. If you are a pain in the butt to work with, you are gone. because I'm not going to let it destroy our company culture for one individual, regardless of how much money they bring into the company. And when I did that, it set the tone for this guy's serious.
Yeah.
You know, if he's going to let the number one salesperson go, he'll let me go if I do it. So that took care of the problem. I'll tell you, it really did.
But like you said, you set a precedent there, and I love that. I love that. I mean, like, you know, again, it's in my book as well. And the same thing is, you cannot afford that person, no matter how much they bring in, because they denigrate the culture. And so it becomes, okay, this is the rule. Except if you create extraordinary income for the company, then you just get it. Then you get to be an entitled brat, and nobody says anything because you're bringing in money. Well, now we're all out of integrity, and we've broken trust. And a part of creating a fiercely loyal culture is trust based. I got to know that what you're saying is actually true, even if I'm at the top of the game. And that to me is beautifully done. One of the things that when we talk about leadership, for me, leadership is more than leading people. It's first of all, it's leading self. It's deciding that you're going to lead yourself. And part of that is knowing, as I said, knowing who you are, knowing what it is you stand for, knowing what it is that matters to you, and that also becomes an example. And I think that has, again, part of understanding this building a fiercely loyal culture is that your people have to be able to see that you will be consistent in not necessarily in their framework. What I mean by it is that you're going to stay consistent to what you know is true for you.
Right.
And I know that you served in the military, right?
No. I'm a big supporter of the military.
So you served.
I did not serve.
You served in support of the military. You served in support of the military, and I know you financed a documentary about vets. And
three wounded warriors.
Yeah.
And it's called. If you don't mind, I'll plug that because I don't make any money from it.
I would like to, because
the DVD is called "Still in the Fight." It's available on Amazon, and all of the proceeds beyond the duplication and fulfillment are split between 4 military charities. And my wife and I funded the entire thing. And we're not taking a dime from it. We just did that to help our charities. But here's what it is. One of the guys that's in our documentary is Kyle Carpenter, who just received the Congressional Medal of Honor recently by President Obama.
Young guy,
and he's in it. He's 20. He's the youngest one to receive it ever. 24 years old, I think.
Yeah.
And it's a great story. It's a great story of hope. And the reason we did that, Dov, is because at the time, 25 men and women, servicemen, mostly men, were killing themselves every day in the United States that were in our military. And it's down to 22 now. And that's why my wife and I funded it, because we said one is too many, a day. 22 is just incredibly ridiculous. So we wanted to help people. We want to get the story out about it. And like I said, "It's Still in the Fight" is the name of the DVD.
Sure. And
thank you for allowing me to do that.
Well, I wanted to do it because, I know that it's not a secret to you, and it's not a secret to me, that you and I have very different political views.
Yeah.
Right. And I think it's one of the things that I think is important is to understand as a leader, you don't have to have everybody around you agrees with you. I enjoy having many of my friends don't agree with me, and that's fine because it allows me to think about things in a different way. And what's more is there's always a place where we meet. And sometimes there's a place we meet that's political. And one of the places that you and I meet is in the atrocious situation with vets, and that they're not taken care of because I have a whole different view about why they shouldn't be in the situations they're in than you do. Yeah. But the fact is, okay, you did it, you're back. Yeah. We need to honor that, and the fact that these guys are on wait lists for 2 years and are committing suicide at a higher rate, dying at a higher rate of suicide than they are in battle.
Absolutely.
That is like, I don't care whether you're a liberal or a Republican, that is mind-blowing. Soldiers are dying more from self-inflicted, they're killing themselves. Yeah. You're screaming about ISIS and Al-Qaeda and hold on a minute. Yeah. These guys are dying at their own hands. They're not dying at the hands of terrorists. And if that's happening, that's a statement of not being supported. And, when we talk about fiercely loyal and cultures that are fiercely loyal, the fact that some guy signs up puts his life on the line for a country, for a belief system, for whatever it is, and you have no loyalty to him,
Yeah.
or her, sorry, excuse me,
Yeah.
him or her, to me is insane. The whole thing
I agree.
is insane. And if somebody in my world, my reality, it's not the truth, is crazy enough to go do that, then you need to respect them when they come home. And
you take care of them.
Respect, not what they, I don't care if you respect what they did, but you respect
Yeah.
that they went out and did that, and that
Right.
you've got to take care of them. And I
Yeah.
really appreciate that you stepped up on that. You know,
Thank
that you stepped up, because the rate of homelessness for vets, the
Yeah.
rate of
Terrible.
suicide for vets, these things are insane.
Yeah.
And, you know, and as I said, I know we have political differences,
Yeah.
but that is something that I think is really important. And I want you to know that I appreciate that, and I want you to plug that, and because I want people to get that DVD and see what
I
it's like
appreciate it.
to be a returning service person and come back and go, wow.
Yeah. The beautiful thing about the DVD is it's a story of hope. It shows these guys. I like what Jay Redmond, he's a Navy SEAL, one of the 3 people. There are 2 Marines and 1 Navy SEAL profiled in the DVD, in the documentary. And he said, well, we need to find our new normal. You know, these guys were, you know, one of them lost his leg.
Yeah.
Kyle Carpenter jumped on a grenade.
Yeah.
He's had great day untold surgeries. He still has more.
Right.
He's come a long way, but all 3 of them, Jay Redmond is as well. You know, he had shot in the face in various places. These guys are all class acts. And Jay he's a really nice guy. I went up to Virginia Beach and, you know, participated in his fundraiser that he has. And he's just phenomenal. It's Wounded Wear is the name of his charity, Wounded Wear. And he does a great job helping vets.
Right.
And we gave him a bunch of DVDs to put in the bags that he gives to the wounded warriors, if you will.
Wow.
But I agree wholeheartedly. I mean, our wounded warriors, in my opinion, anyone who served in the military, should be first in line to get any money at all from the government.
Yep.
Period.
Mm-hmm.
And that's my philosophy.
Yeah.
So that's why I did it.
Yeah, I think, like I said, I think what you're doing is remarkable, and it's important, and I think I want people to know about it. Now,
Thank
you, as I said, I know you've been doing a million of these interviews, and and after a while, it can feel pretty wearing, I'm sure. So I'm gonna turn it on you and give you a moment if you need it, because I'm sure that you have a question you've not been asked. You have something you'd like to say that's, you know, tied to your book. And again, I'm going to put the link for the book underneath the podcast so people can go get it. And I encourage you to go get it. I've read it. It's a great book. It's got really simple, powerful, important stuff, particularly on leadership and building loyalty. Mm-hmm. However, tell us what, you know, because all you've always do is tell us what we've all forgotten to ask you that's important.
Mm-hmm. Why did you write the book?
Right.
Some people have kind of asked various questions that included that, but why did I write it? Because I saw, and you know what I'm talking about when I say this, Dob, but when you have so many management changes, like for example, we do about almost close to 2,000 Walmart stores in the country. We do people like Target. We do Outback Steakhouses, FedEx Ground, Lowe's Home Improvement. These guys, they change sometimes quite often. Mm-hmm. Most of them, thankfully, are promoted, so that's good because the companies are all growing.
Yeah.
But then you have, what frustrated me was when a new manager comes in and the old manager was using our employee recognition and engagement program, and all of a sudden they just said, okay, we're done with that. I'm going like, what the heck? Mm-hmm. You know, so it's working. You know, the guy that was in there got promoted out of the business. What's the deal?
Right.
But the number one reason that I ultimately wrote the book is because, and I talk about it in the book, is for every 100 employees, and this was a survey, or I should say a study done by World at Work. And they do this every few years, by the way, and it's statistically the same when they do it. It's roughly for every 100 employees, only 6 or 7 of those employees ever become a manager. And of those 6 or 7, less than 1, ever gets promoted again. And that is a massive failure rate. So what's happening to these people? That's what I wanted to figure out. And it's just like, well, they're not making good decisions. First of all, they don't continue to learn.
Right.
You know, they take over as manager, but they're not really a good leader. You know, I remember, I need to get the names of these 2 guys. I listen to CDs and DVDs and podcasts all the time. But there's 2 consultants that I got from something I got from summary.com, which is a book summaries place. And they had an interview with these guys. So I got to hear their interview. And they said that this particular company that they had, they don't say who it was. They weren't going to say because this was a consulting project. But they said they had taken the top 10 stores and taken the bottom 10 stores. And they swapped the managers. And the ones with the great manager in the beginning, they were green. So when they put them in the other store, they swapped places. So that's how powerful leadership is for the people that get it and that keep trying to get better all the time. Most people don't. Most Americans, and I don't know if it's probably the same for Canadians, but most Americans don't read one book a year.
That's true.
Man, that's pathetic.
Yeah.
That's pathetic.
Yeah.
And the world is changing, Dov, and you know it. It's so fast. We've got to stay up with it. I mean, I talk about, in the book as well, about a particular magazine that wasn't even meant for me that I read about Kaizen, the Japanese term for continuous improvement.
Yeah.
And it was meant for one of my neighbor businesses that had gone out of business. So somehow it got in my mail. So I looked at it and I was just like getting ready to pitch it. And I was like, what is this? So it was a manufacturing magazine. I'm flipping through the pages and I see this one little article about Kaizen. I'm going, what the heck is that? So I read it and I'm like, man, that's awesome. So I called the author and he said, nobody's ever called me before. So I asked him, I said, can you get me in touch with this guy named Bob Hall, not the game show guy, but a consultant, and he did. And I called him, I said, I want you to come to my company. So he came. And today, because of my starting that process, Dov, we are 14 times more efficient than we were years ago. Now, why does that matter? First of all, it makes us more efficient, which means I can do more with less people, which means I can pay my people more, and I do.
Yeah.
My people within our industry are in the top paid people, period. I don't know of any other company in our industry that pays better than I do. Oh, and I do more than that. I recognize them all the time. Naturally, that's our business. You would expect that, right? Because we're in the top 1% of employee recognition and engagement companies, and you expect that. But that's really not the case. We do stuff beyond the plaque programs and various things like that. I take my people, when we do the Employee of the Month, we recognize 4 people out of 45 every month. And my management team and I, which is 5 people, we take them out to eat to one of the nicest restaurants in the city for lunch.
Right.
Now, that's good. We do that. But we take our top people for the quarter. I load them up, pay them for the day, take them to Myrtle Beach, which is about 70 miles from here. And we drive down there, and we go to lunch at P.F. Chang's, one of our clients, and then I pass out $250 cash. I handed each one of them, and I said, all right, let's go to the Tanger outlet malls and spend some money. So we go there and do that. Then I'll take the ones that want to go to a movie.
Right.
So we'll go see a movie while we're down there. And we used to go to NASCAR and, racetrack, and we used to race there. They might want to kick us out because we get a little too competitive, Dov. So we do that, and then we all meet back at the Brazilian steakhouse for dinner. So I wine them and dine them and spoil them royally.
Yeah.
And my people know that I appreciate them. And a lot of people could say, well, Dave, I can't afford to do that. Well, you know what you can do? You can walk up and you can pat them on the back and just say, I wanted you to know, Dov, you did a phenomenal job on that report. Or you did a phenomenal job on that presentation. How much money does that cost? Not a cockeyed dime.
No.
But it's powerful because you showed them they mattered. And here's a statistic from Gallup organization, which just blew my mind when I read it. 65% of employees in our country said that in the last year they have received absolutely no recognition from their manager.
Yeah.
That is a tragedy right there.
It is.
And no wonder there's no loyalty between management and labor, if you will.
Exactly. I think you've made some great points, and it's really important. Number one is, of course, recognition. You've got to recognize people and validate people because people want purpose and meaning in what it is they're doing, and they won't stay loyal if they don't have that. But one of the things I just want to finish with is as we've been talking about all this, and you've been talking about that people have got to keep educating themselves, and they've got to keep growing, and it's important to grow yourself and build yourself, build your team, build your business, and then you're built to lead. Right. All that's great. But one of the things that you didn't say here, that I know, that I think it's important for our viewers, our listeners to know, and that's this. You talked about the Kaizen situation where the magazine came, and you talked about bringing in the consultant to the company. What you didn't say, and I happen to know, and I'm going to say it for you, is that before the guy came in, you studied the hell out of Kaizen. You studied everything you possibly could. And then when the guy showed up, you introduced him and basically covered all the bases. So the guy
Yeah.
went, oh, well, thanks for paying me. I'll go home now. So, but you see, that is a really great example of the polarity of what the problem is. And the problem is, I got promoted, I'm good.
That's right. It is indeed.
I'm in the position, I'm good. And leadership is a state of constant committed growth, a commitment to constant growth. And if you're not doing that because you're too busy, then you're not really a leader. You're not really a leader. And I think that you've really outlined those examples super well. Before we finish, I want to give you an opportunity I want you to share, if you will, any tip you have, a couple of tips you have, or some powerful insight that you want people to walk away with, besides where to get the book. And again, I'll post the link to that. But a tip or some insight that you would like people to really go away and not only think about, but take an action on. Because as you know, without action, it's all worth nothing anyway.
Absolutely. Well, I think the number one thing that I can go back to my own success is the fact that I started reading. My father, by the way, taught me this. And he said, son, you need to read, 15, 20 minutes a day. Well, you got to 50, got to, easily past a half hour. Now today is 3 or 4 hours. As I told you, I do not work in my company at all. I only work on it.
Right.
And I work on my people.
Right.
So I'm constantly developing myself and them. So obviously the reading part is huge. You've got to constantly be thinking about that. You've got to look for different things. Do not assume you know it all. And that is the number one problem with people, is they feel like they're there and I don't need, like you said, I've arrived, I'm there, don't bother me. 70, this is a statistic from Gallup as well, 70% of managers in the country are either disengaged or actively disengaged. Now, disengaged means they can care less. Okay, what I got to do. Okay, you guys do what you're supposed to do. I'll be in my office if you need me. Kind of deal. Yeah. Actively disengaged is when the company says this is something we're rolling out and the manager starts bad-mouthing it to the people and to the management team. That's actively disengaged. Yeah. That's not the donkey or the jackass sitting down, Dov. That's the donkey or the jackass pulling the opposite direction.
Pulling the opposite direction, yeah.
So when you've got 70% of managers either disengaged or actively disengaged, why would you not expect the same from your employees?
Of course.
So naturally it's the same.
Yeah.
So, and whoever said it, and I don't know who said it, but the business rises or falls on leadership. And if you want to have an engaged team, you need to be engaged yourself and let them know you care about them. But you also need to let them know that you care about their advancement. We just had, and this isn't in the book, so this just happened recently. We actually had a young lady who worked with us who got her MBA. And she wanted to get into management like right away. Sorry, but we've got a very strong management team. We didn't have any openings.
Right.
So what we did was we found her a position with one of the guys in my mastermind group I mentioned in the book, Rob. And she is doing a phenomenal job with him. They're a perfect match. So when you have that situation where I don't have somebody someplace in my company for you, but I'm going to help you get a job somewhere else. Things like that are why at our company, 3/4 of the employees that work with us, Dov, have come because our employees told them about what it's like to work at our company.
Yeah.
So here's the bottom line. If you as a manager left the company that you're in and you went to work maybe at across town or something, whatever the business,
right?
How many people that have worked with you, Dov, would go with you or ask to go with you? Man, that's the litmus test of whether or not you're a great manager or not right there.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Period.
Well, it's been fantastic having you on the show, David. Thank you so much. Appreciate your time. I know you are a busy guy. Not when you're not holidaying, but busy guy certainly with all these interviews. And I really appreciate you making the time for us. We'll make sure that this is shared, and I'll make sure that the link is there for the book so people can get it. We'll also put up the link, not just to Amazon, but also to your website, because I know you've got tons of resources for people to tap into. And they can do that.
If I can, Dov, would you allow me to do this for your viewers? Would be if they buy the hardback copy of the book on Amazon, if they buy the hardback, what they'll do is they'll email me with their receipt, their Amazon receipt to davidlong@top10manager.com. I will send them the Kindle version for free.
Rocking. Fabulous. So they can start reading right away.
Be happy to do that. Absolutely.
Awesome.
So I'd be happy to do that.
We will definitely get that up and let people know about that. Thank you, David.
Excellent. Thank you, Dov. I appreciate the opportunity.
It's been great having you here, mate. Stay curious. Cheers, mate.
You too. Thanks a lot.